So translation, under no circumstances can the words of persons bewildered by the illusory energy of the Lord deviate the intelligence of those who are completely surrendered souls. So we'll go right into the purport. Lord Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead according to all the evidences of the Vedas. He is accepted by all acharyas, including Sripada, Sankaracharya. But when he was present in the world, different classes of men accepted him differently, and therefore their calculations of the Lord were also different. Generally, persons who had faith in the revealed scriptures accepted the Lord as he is, and all of them merged into great bereavement when the Lord disappeared from the world. In the first canto, we have already discussed the lamentation of Arjuna and Yudhisthira, to whom the disappearance of Lord Krishna was almost intolerable up to the end of their lives. The Yadavas were only partially cognizant of the Lord, but they are also glorious because they had the opportunity to associate with the Lord, who acted as the head of their family, and they also rendered the Lord intimate service. The Yadavas and other devotees of the Lord are different from those who wrongly calculated him to be an ordinary human personality. Such persons are certainly bewildered by the illusory energy. They are hellish and are envious of the Supreme Lord. The illusory energy acts very powerfully on them because, in spite of their elevated mundane education, such persons are faithless and are infected by the mentality of atheism. They are always very eager to establish that Lord Krishna was an ordinary man who was killed by a hunter due to his many impious acts in plotting to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra and Jarasandha, the demoniac kings of the earth. Such persons have no faith in the statement of the Bhagavad Gita that the Lord is unaffected by the reactions of work. Namam karmani limpanti, Bhagavad Gita 4:14. According to the atheistic point of view, Lord Krishna's family, the Yadu dynasty, was vanquished due to being cursed by the Brahmanas for the sins committed by Krishna in killing the sons of Dhritarashtra, etc. All these blasphemies do not touch the heart of the devotees of the Lord, because they know perfectly well what is what. Their intelligence regarding the Lord is never disturbed, but those who are disturbed by the statements of the asuras are also condemned. That is what Uddhava meant in this verse. Om Jnana Tamandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksus Unmitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Upakadamayam Tadanti Swavadantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Panchakalpa Tribhyascha, Kripa Sindhu Bevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. So the verse again. Under no circumstances can the words of persons bewildered by the illusory energy of the Lord deviate the intelligence of those who are completely surrendered souls. So we have a nice pastime going on here. We can see, as mentioned in the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions that due to, as this is what the atheistic, the hellish mentality thinks, that due to Krishna's many impious acts, like in plotting to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra and Jarasandha, as you can see here, that Krishna is coaxing their Bhima to how to kill him. So this is Krishna's impious act in killing these demoniac kings. So this is what was described in the verse. And if we go to the next slide, we can see as mentioned in the purport, according to the atheistic point of view, Lord Krishna's family, the Yadu dynasty, was vanquished due to being cursed by the Brahmanas for the sins committed by Krishna in killing the sons of Dhritarashtra, etc. So here we see the young boys of the Yadu dynasty. They brought Samba, who was the son of Jambavati, to a holy place dressed in a woman's garb. And they pretended that she was pregnant, put some pillows there or something, and they feigned humility, and they said, "O learned Brahmanas, this black-eyed pregnant woman has something to ask you, but she's too embarrassed to inquire for herself. She is just about to give birth to a very desirous of having a son. And since you sages have infallible vision, can you tell us whether the child will be a boy or a girl?" So the sages didn't take that very well. They actually felt that they were being ridiculed, and they said, "You fools! Your entire dynasty will be cursed, and it will be annihilated." So, and they said, "Yes, you will give birth to," there's very much offended. The Yadus were terrified, because what happened is that they said that your entire dynasty will be cursed and will be destroyed by this iron club. So that's what appeared underneath the garments, was this iron club, and everybody was just freaked. So they had this iron club completely pulverized into like powder, and they threw it into the ocean. And of course there was one piece that they couldn't, because it was one piece, they had a hold to grind up the other pieces, so it's a little piece left, kind of a solid, bigger piece. And what happened is that they threw it in the ocean, and the ocean was coming upon the shores of the bank, and there was these bamboos there growing, and they sucked up the water, and they also sucked up all those metal shavings or metal powder, and they turned these so-called bamboo, just rods into actually iron rods. And that other little piece was swallowed by a fish, and I guess there was a hunter that took that and he carved that as one of his arrowheads for his hunting. So we see here what happened is that the entire Yadu dynasty was destroyed. So this is after they were performing these religious ceremonies. Krishna advised them to come. So after the ceremonies, they indulged in drinking a sweet beverage, and they all became intoxicated. And they were so intoxicated that they began to argue with each other, and they became angry and angrier, and they took up their bows and arrows and swords and spears, and they started actually killing each other. And they completely abandoned their friendship and family relationships. Sons fought with fathers, brothers with brothers, nephews with uncles, grandsons with grandfathers, friends with friends, well-wishers with well-wishers. They were all fighting together until their bows were broken, and they're using these rods, which are actually, not just sugarcane stalks, but they were just actually hard metal iron rods. And then Krishna tried to stop them, but they attacked him as well. So then they actually mistook Balaram as an enemy. And Krishna, and they started to attack them. So this time they both became angry, and they started to kill them also. So this is how the Yadus were actually destroyed by this curse. So this is very interesting, that atheists may think, wow, look, see, Krishna's family was destroyed. They're supposedly, undefeatable. They were, immortal beings, and they were killed by each other. They just killed each other. So the atheists would like to believe this. There's no Krishna. He's not Krishna. He's not God. And even Krishna supposedly was killed. As we remember that the hunter, he shaped that last piece of iron onto his arrow. And as Krishna mentioned here, they were always very eager to establish that Krishna was an ordinary man, and he was killed by a hunter due to his many impious acts. So this is where Krishna actually sat down on the ground near a pipala tree, and he exhibited his brilliant effulgence four-armed form, and his complexion was like dark blue cloud. His effulgence was like the color of molten gold. And this is where you could see the hunter actually realized he thought it was a deer, and somehow or another the deer face of Krishna's foot. But when he came, he saw Krishna, and he had very attractive lotus eyes. He had shark-shaped earrings, a beautiful smile on his face. He had locks of this blue hair adorned his head, and he wore very beautiful bracelets, jewels, necklaces, a flower garland. And you can see there encircling his body were his personal weapons in their embodied forms. So actually, even Krishna is everything about Krishna is personal, has personal forms. So even his weapons. So this is what Krishna sat down, and he put his left foot with his lotus red sole on his right thigh. And that's when that hunter, Jara, mistook the Lord's foot for the face of a deer and pierced it with an arrow. And then he saw Krishna, and then he came up to him and he recognized his mistake, and he fell down at Krishna's feet, as we saw, and he asked to be killed for his offense. But Krishna replied to him and said, actually, this has taken place due to my own desire. And he sent Jara to Vaikuntha. So this is Krishna. So here we see, and then Krishna, he actually, when he left the earth, actually truth, religion, faithlessness, and glory and beauty immediately followed him. Faithfulness, not faithlessness, but faithfulness actually, it followed him. And we can see that was the beginning of the age of Kali. And as mentioned in the Bhagavatam, that the age of Kali is just the atmosphere of faithlessness is everywhere. So because his faithfulness went with Krishna, so all this glory and beauty immediately followed Krishna. So that's when the kettle drums, and so Krishna just kind of ascended into the heavens, and they were flowers on him. And some of the demigods can see him, but others could not see him as he was ascending. But the ones that saw him, they were like amazed. They were astonished to see how Krishna's mystic power was working. And then all the demigods just praised Krishna and his mystic powers. And then they returned to their own planets. So this is the wonderful pastimes of Krishna. It's so amazing and glorious. The demigods are seeing it in one way, and the demons are seeing it in another way. What does this all do to? Due to faith. And this is what we see here. We're hearing the Bhagavatam from Sukadeva Goswami to this King Parikshit, who had much faith also. And he's calling him, "Oh, most powerful Sukadeva Goswami, I wish to hear from you the different pastimes of Krishna." And we're actually hearing the pastime of Krishna in Los Angeles in the 8th canto, on the last chapter, about the fish incarnation. So he's asking to him from Sukadeva Goswami, and he's calling him, "Oh, most powerful." And why is he calling him most powerful? Because he knows things that are unknowable. He knows something from a different realm, something beyond our current experience. It's a whole kind of knowledge from a different sort. As we see in the Bhagavatam, there's processes of knowledge. There's a whole epistemology for gaining knowledge. As mentioned, one of them is logic, what people say. There's direct experience. There's 10 different ones. But all of these are completely insufficient to give us knowledge beyond our senses. So therefore we have to use Shabda. This is transcendental sound. And we have to receive it from the proper source, and that's from the great sages, those who know Krishna. Some sages may not even know Krishna fully, but only when Krishna reveals himself, then they can know. And he is revealed to Sukadeva Goswami. So just see our plight here. We have imperfect senses to understand things. We can't actually know everything. We can't know everything fully. It's not within our capacity. Who can understand everything, like know everything about everything? Only Krishna can understand reality fully. So, but we shouldn't be so arrogant to think that, we have a grasp of reality. But actually reality is something it includes everything. Just like a person, and he has his own reality, his own environment, his own cubicle, or whatever he's got his own egg that he's in, and he thinks that's everything, that's the whole reality. Like a businessman, you try to explain to him that there's more to life than money, he won't believe you. Try to explain to a bird there's more to life than worms or rocks to eat. They won't understand. How are they going to understand? So similarly, people that are completely absorbed in their own reality, thinking they know everything, they can't. But they have to hear it from someone who has a different source of knowledge. So this is where we get it from Krishna himself. That's why he comes to display himself. And Sukadeva Goswami is most powerful because he's heard, and he has a very deep understanding of reality. So we have to hear from authorities. And this is in that chapter of the 8th canto, the last chapter, it describes in the king about the importance of hearing from an authority, from accepting a spiritual master. So in the 8th canto, just to talk about the 8th canto alone, which we're coming to, and which is being prompted by all the great devotees like Vidura and such. So at the beginning of the chapter, Krishna appeared to protect his devotee. He appeared to Gajendra. There's one incarnation, different incarnations, how Krishna comes. And this is simply amazing in how he delivers Gajendra, and he delivers the crocodile. And then as we go on through the 8th canto, there's the whole pastime of the churning of the milk ocean. And we see so many incarnations of Krishna there. That Krishna comes as a turtle. He comes as Kurma. And then he comes as, he sits on top of the hill, another aspect of him, and balances it. So he's on the bottom, he's on the top, and he's even helping the demigods pull. So many different incarnations in this particular chapter. And then we see that after that, they got it and they were cheated by Mohini Murti, another incarnation of Krishna, and he bewildered the demons. In fact, even bewildered Lord Shiva. Then as we go on in the 8th canto, there's the pastime of Aditi praying to Krishna to protect his sons that have been kicked out of their heavenly planets by this most powerful demon, Bali. There's Bali Maharaj. And he prays, and Krishna appears as the most beautiful incarnation as Vamanadev. So these are all different forms of Krishna, and they come to display amazing things. We see there's the main 10 incarnations. We have the Matsya, the fish. We can see Kurma, the turtle. There's Kalki, comes at the end of the Kali Yuga, and then there's Buddha. Of course, there's Krishna, also in the middle there. So usually Krishna, has these different incarnations. These are 10 main ones, but there's many other ones. There's Lord Braha and Lord Nrsingadev. We see Vamanadev, and then there's Parshuram and Lord Ram, who just had his appearance day. And there's Krishna and Balaram. They come. So this is Krishna displaying himself, displaying his unlimited potency, and to attract us actually to him so that we can, see such wonder and such beauty. And if we have some sincerity and some piety, then we can develop that faith in Krishna. So in that chapter, we talked about this Matsya incarnation and how there's a Matsya Purana, and this is actually described to the king as he was being pulled on the boat when he was being protected by this great king. And this is interesting. This particular pastime was being narrated in the forest of Naimisharanya by Ramaharshana. And they had this big fire sacrifice. And then after they finished the sacrifice, they recited many Puranas. And after they finished, they said, the subject matter of these Puranas is so pleasing, we'd like to hear them once more. Please satisfy our thirst for hearing. So he said, Ramaharshana said, I will recount for you the most holy of all Puranas. And this is the great Matsya Purana. It's told by Vishnu to Manu. So this is when Vishnu is explaining in the form of the fish. He was actually narrating this Matsya Purana. So this is where this great king, he was actually about to retire. He was the son of the sun god. He was Manu. And his name was Vaivashvata Manu. And it was time for him to retire. So what they do in those days, they would just go to the forest and they would perform great pastimes, great austerities. And he had performed these austerities for thousands and thousands of years. And he was pleased. Actually, he pleased Lord Brahma, and Lord Brahma came and said, what would you like? And he said, I know that there is going to be a destruction, the Pralaya is going to come, and I want you to benedict me that I will be the one that will save everybody. So this is when Lord Brahma said, okay, fine. So then later, this is when the fish appeared to him in his palm of his hands, and then he told him that, yes, in a few days, 7 days, there's going to be a Pralaya, and then I will bring you a ship, a boat, and you could tie the boat to my horn on, with the snake Vasuki. And this is what actually happened, is that this storm came and this boat came, and this is what they actually did. They got Vasuki, and he tied this boat to this fish that was 8 million miles long. So is this unbelievable or what? This is like a real fish story. So we have to actually understand, and we can see here, here's the fish. It's amazing. It's a very beautiful, actually, fish. Very beautiful eyes. So this is what we have to have faith to believe these. Are these just mythology? Is it just nice stories to kind of have some kind of moral understanding behind it or something? No, but this is actually Krishna coming and displaying himself and testing us to see and showing us that you can actually believe. And there's a process to develop faith. And we'll mention that. But here, there's many different pastimes we see. Here's King Ugrasena, and there's Krishna. And we can see, actually it's described in the 10th canto that this king, Ugrasena, he had billions of personal bodyguards. Billions. Actually, he had more personal bodyguards than the population of the entire earth. And they all lived in the small island of Dwarka. And we could see everyone is living very comfortably. There's no traffic jams. There's no scarcity of food. Everything they were able to supply and benefit, everything right here in this one island. And Krishna provided for that. That's amazing. So we can see this is Krishna's Achinta Shakti. He comes to display that. It's beyond our comprehension. And because if one has a demoniac, hellish mentality, then you'll think this is not real, this is just stories. But Krishna, he can do anything he wants. Actually, Krishna can put this whole island of Dwarka on the head of a pin needle. That he could do anything he wants, and then they can live comfortably right on the tip of a needle. This is Krishna's unlimited power, unlimited potency, and he could do anything he wants. And then here we see that the one example of someone who has faith, that under no circumstances can the words of persons be bewildered by the illusory energy, deviate one's intelligence, who is completely surrendered soul. And we could see the same in Prahlad Maharaj. I mean, his father was the most powerful person in the entire universe. He had everybody under his control. When he wanted it to rain, it rained. When he wanted a nice breeze came. He controlled everybody, all the demigods. But yet, he couldn't control his little 5-year-old son to make him believe that, this material nature that he controls is everything, not your Vishnu, not your God. So to try to persuade him, he did so many demoniac things to try to kill his son. Threw him in a pit of snakes, poisonous, angry, hungry vipers. And yet Prahlad Maharaj had complete faith in Krishna. If Krishna wants to kill me, no one can save me. But if Krishna wants to save me, nobody can kill me, or nothing can kill me. This was shown so dramatically by Prahlad Maharaj, and we could see in his pastimes. Because Prahlad Maharaj heard properly from his spiritual master, Narada, and it didn't matter. Hiranyakashipu was all his resources. He was in control of everything. They couldn't disturb his faith. Not only did they try to boil him, stomp him with elephants, they gave him deadly poison, which he offered to Krishna, and then he took it. He knew it was poison, but he had complete faith in Krishna, that if Krishna wants to protect him, that no one can harm him. How can there be anything more greater to attain than this faith? It's like a wealth that's immense. Because if you have this faith and Krishna's there, he's protecting you, he manifests himself in his heart, in your heart. And we can see, even this was shown by Srila Prabhupada. Actually, Prabhupada was watching the moon landing on TV. And Prabhupada heard in the Vedas that it said that they did not go to the moon. And Prabhupada didn't have to be, he didn't need any convincing about that they didn't go. But he had complete faith in the Vedas. And Prabhupada said 50 years ago, more than 50 years ago, that they did not go. And now we see so many conspiracy theories afterwards. People are saying that they didn't go. People are proving and showing. There's different films that actually how they did it, how it was a big hoax, so many different ways. And Prabhupada said that himself. So we can see that is actually, we can see example of Srila Prabhupada. He had faith in the Vedas. And the wonderful story that we see to show faith that everyone knows is the cobbler and the Brahmana and Narada Muni story. We all know the story how there was this cobbler who was very poor, and he had this, he's making shoes, and the Brahmana, he was very paka. And Narada Muni happened to visit them, and and the Brahmana said, "Oh, Narada Muni," he's being very respectful and everything. And he said, "Where are you going? What are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, I'm on my way to go visit Vishnu." He goes, "Oh, well, if you go see Vishnu, then tell him or ask him, when am I going to come back to him?" He said, "Okay, I'll ask him." And then Narada Muni on his way also saw a cobbler who was also a devotee of Krishna. And the cobbler asked him where he was going. He said, "I'm going to go see Vishnu." He goes, "Go, can you ask him for me when I will go back to Godhead?" And he said, "Sure, I'll ask him for you, no problem." So when Narada Muni goes back and sees Krishna, he has some discussion, and then Narada Muni was about to leave, and he said, "Oh, there's two devotees of yours that asked me. There's one a cobbler and one a Brahmin, and they wanted to know when they're going to come back to you." And so Krishna said, "Oh, the Brahmana, he'll have to take many, many lifetimes." And he goes, "Oh, really?" And he said, "Yes." And then he said, "And the cobbler, you can tell him he'll come back to me in this next life." And he said, "Okay." And he goes, "Yeah, all right, I'll tell them." He said, "Yeah, and if they ask you what I'm doing here, just tell them that I'm threading an elephant through an eye of a needle." This is an interesting story because even in the Christian tradition, they talk about that, threading a camel through the eye of a needle. And this is, in regard to how a rich man, Jesus said to his disciples, "Truly I say to you, it is hard for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven. It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God." So his disciples heard this and they were astonished, and they said, "Well, then who can be saved?" And then Jesus replied that, "Verily, truly, very truly I tell you, no one can see the kingdom of God unless they are born again. So we know what that means. We have to be born into the Brahminical platform. We have to be, give up this material birth and take a spiritual birth. And this is through the taking shelter of our real father and mother. The spiritual master is the father, the mother is the Vedas. And by doing that, we could develop faith so that we could believe in Krishna, because according to our faith is what we'll attain. It's what you'll get. So this is very interesting, how we'll see. So Narada Muni appears to them and tells them. The Brahmana is very disturbed because he heard he's not going back to Godhead for a long time. And he was kind of doubting whether Narada Muni went to see Krishna. So he said, so you went to go see Krishna, right? So what was he doing? He said, oh, yeah, he was threading an elephant through an eye of a needle. He goes, oh, impossible. That's ridiculous. You didn't go see Krishna. I can see why. And then he said, okay. So he could see why, because he had no faith that he wasn't going to go back to Godhead in the next life or many lives after that. So then he went to see the cobbler, and he saw the cobbler and said, oh, yeah, what did Krishna say about me going back to Godhead? And he said, oh, you're going to go back in the next life. And he goes, oh, that's so wonderful. I'm so grateful to Krishna. He goes, oh, by the way, what was Krishna doing when you were there? And he said, oh, yeah, Krishna was threading an elephant through an eye of a needle. And he goes, oh, my Lord, it's so wonderful. It's so amazing. And Narada Muni was testing him. He said, you believe that? And he goes, sure, why not? Just look here. There's so many miracles in this world. There's a banyan tree. Look at that seed of the banyan tree. Just in that one seed, there's an entire banyan tree. If Krishna can do that, I mean, what's so hard for him to put an elephant through an eye of a needle? So you can see how huge a banyan tree is. This is amazing. So in the same way, in the Christian tradition, they talk about this analogy of the camel going through the eye of a needle. How one who's attached and has faith in riches, then it's practically impossible for him to understand anything spiritual. Why? Because he's actually envious of Krishna, because he's attached to materialistic things. And that's where his faith is. The wealthy businessman has faith in his money, has faith in his things, and is so satisfied and comfortable in his home that he thinks there is nothing greater than that. And you try to convince him of that, it's practically impossible. So this is the power of association. If you have association with a great soul, like Prahlad Maharaj did, Narada Muni, and these different living entities throughout the Bhagavatam, great personalities, had association with great devotees, like Vidura had with Uddhava, then this power of association, we develop our faith. And this is a science. It's a science to turn someone who is faithless into a very faithless person, just faithful person. Just as you could turn a cold iron rod into a flaming hot. It's practically a fire itself. And it's such a big popular thing these days, we hear today among the successful people. And they always ask them if when they're interviewed, what is your morning ritual? What do you do in the morning? What is your, because they want to know what makes them successful. What is your tricks? So we see many of these successful people have morning rituals of how they, get their mind together, how they eat properly, the things they do. They do some meditation, maybe they do some exercises. They have a ritual that they do every day to keep them to their optimal performance. And this is true, and we can see throughout the Vedic tradition, there was many rituals, and they're still being done by the in India and different places like that. They have these rituals. But now today, our science is killing this, because the young people, the young Indians, they see their parents doing these rituals, pujas and meditations and all these, reciting these different allegories and these far out stories. And they see, then ask, why are you doing this? And they say, well, it's our tradition, we do it. We're not sure exactly why we do it, but it's just how it's always been done. It's our faith. And then they think, they reject it, because in science they say, Unless you can verify it, unless you can see it and understand it and touch it, then it's not, you can't, have no faith in it. You should reject it as old-fashioned, as just mythology. No, actually rituals are meant to develop deep scientific philosophical convictions, and they'll bring us to a realization and experience of the things, these spiritual things that are beyond this material energy. It's not dry ritual dogma. And this is a fact. These same personalities that we hear Radhanath Swami talk about when they go give the lectures in the universities in India. These young youth are just starving for spirituality, starving for something more. And then when they hear it presented in such a very scientific and practical way, then they actually begin to understand. And they actually give their lives and they surrender to Krishna consciousness. And then when their parents hear that, then they think that's fanatical. So it's interesting. So we have this atmosphere that that Srila Prabhupada has developed for us. It's to hear from proper spiritual sources. And that'll create an awakening of very deep faith. Because there's nothing more powerful than faith. But we know that the most powerful thing is time, because time destroys everything. Everybody's going to die, no matter how powerful a nation you are, how much defense you have, how much science you have, all these different inventions and things. Still, time inevitably will destroy you. But faith is so powerful that it can actually conquer death. And we see throughout the Bhagavatam, we see Prahlad Maharaj's example, Dhruva Maharaj. He actually stepped on the head of death and walked over him and went back to the spiritual world. So there's nothing more powerful than faith. So we have to have faith in somebody. So our spiritual authorities are our heroes. Not that we follow the blind leading the blind into a ditch. This is Kali Yuga. So today, Kali Yuga, there's just an atmosphere of faithlessness. And so our authorities have become corrupt by Kali. Even big preachers, we just heard in the news, big famous preachers now are being put in jail for, lying and stealing funds and doing different things like that. So they're all bad apples. And people are becoming frustrated because, who am I going to pick? I mean, they're all bad apples, so which one to pick? They're all bad. So we need these real heroes like Sukadeva Goswami, like Vidura, and so many wonderful personalities throughout the Bhagavatam. Not these degraded heroes, movie stars and musicians and sports figures and so-called gurus. You look on the internet, just type in guru, you'll find a guru for everything. There's a guru for business. There's a guru for yoga. There's a guru for, anything you can imagine, there's some kind of guru. So this is what it means. If you're going to follow these people, then following the leader means exactly what we see here. You're going to get what they got. You're going to get their destination. So we have to be careful who we follow. And we'll fall into the ditch, the ocean of the material miseries, which is here. We can see the age of Kali, how people become victims. All these different political beliefs, creeds, different parties. There's so many different types of sense gratification, diversions, like cinemas, different sports, gambling, clubs, mundane literatures, bad association, bad habits, smoking, drinking, cheating, pilfering, bickerings, so many things. And this is how their minds are always disturbed. They're full of anxieties due to so many different engagements. And this is the Kali Yuga atmosphere. It's surcharged with faithlessness. People are no longer interested in spiritual values, but material sense gratification has become the standard. And this is what it is here. But the devotees of the Lord, they're always anxious for their spiritual improvement of the general public. And we saw when the sages of Namasaranya, they analyzed the state of affairs. This is when they started to do these yagyas. for people in this age. They saw that the people here will have short lives. They'll be disturbed, that they, have insufficient food, irregular habits. But the real rituals that we have,
Ramananda, anybody there?
Hare Krishna. Yeah, we can hear you, Prabhu.
We lost Gora Chand, right?
Gora Chandra is still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can
That's
hear
1, 2, 3.
Yep.
Good. Okay. So Gora Chandra is on the phone right now. We're trying to figure out what happened. Okay. Let's see. This is one. I tell you, last night I had technical problems too. It's just, I really think this is something astrological, some sort of a plot. Really, I prepared all week for a PowerPoint. I couldn't do it at the temple last night.
Some other.
Okay. Koda Prabhu.
I could hear you.
Yeah, no, we only hear your echo though.
Okay, I had Narahari. So.
Gauda.
I got kicked off again. Somehow.
Attendees has declined to become the presenter. I sent you a request.
I didn't see anything yet. Maybe send it again.
Unless I'm sending the wrong person. Let's see. Maybe you're Gauda.
I'm Gauda with a D.
Let's try that.
Yeah, that's it now. Okay.
Oh, I sent it to Gorgender. Sorry, Gorapro. Okay.
I can see it. It's back. It's up now.
Okay.
And we have your audio back.
Okay. All right. So, where did I leave you guys off at? Were you in the ocean of Kali Yuga?
That was that step. Yeah, the ocean of Kali Yuga with all the bad guys.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, and then
That's it. That's where you left off at. You left off in about, you were a couple of minutes into the slide.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we're talking about how people shorten their lives. Srila Prabhupada said that by keeping regular habits, eating simple foods, we can maintain our health. But it's because of over sense gratification, overeating, over independence of others' mercy, artificial standards of living. That's what saps our human energy. So Prabhupada has given us a proper ritual that we can perform every day to maintain our spiritual health, maintain our physical health, and develop that faith. So this is Srila Prabhupada coming on the ship of ISKCON, and with a little faith, we simply have to grab onto the rope and pull ourselves up. And then we can go aboard, and that's where we can actually hear the narrations and descriptions of these wonderful pastimes of Matsya incarnation, as we're going to hear from Vidura and Uddhava. They're going to describe Krishna in so many different aspects, and because they're repeating what Sukadeva Goswami has said. They're simply glorifying the Supreme Lord in this way, because we're influenced by our surroundings, and we must be willing to give up the sense gratification and mental speculation. So we need faith, and we get faith by associating with those who are faithful, or those who want to develop that faith also. So we get that support in that way. Because look at the current, the whole ocean is against us. I mean, the whole material nature is out to get you. And everybody's in this body concept. So we have to surrender to Krishna, have that faith, and by associating with these Vaishnavas. Because the spiritual master will give us that seed of bhakti, and that's faith, actually. So come on aboard, and it's here. These wonderful descriptions of Satyavrata, Matsya, incarnation, all these things we can actually be protected. Everything about Krishna is wonderful. There's a Matsya mudra you can perform. We perform every day in our pujas to purify things. There's a Matsya yantra you can have put in your home. It's part of the whole science of Vastu that protects you. Everything, even the abstract geometrical figure of Matsya, or the different incarnations of Krishna, they can protect you. It's so powerful. So we must have this faith. It's very amazing that we can develop this faith. So just like we're hearing in this chapter that, the Yadus actually saw Krishna every day. And we see Krishna every day too. We all know that this deity is made of marble. Deity is made of wood, metal. But it's still the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we have to believe that. And Krishna is right in front of us. Just like Krishna was present on this planet, but still some people did not see him, or they saw him in different ways. So here he is now. But do we see Krishna? Do we have the faith in Krishna? Because if we do have that faith in Krishna, then we'll actually go to Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada has said twice in this in this last chapter in the 8th canto, he mentioned in 2 different purports that the real purpose of life is to go back to Godhead, to live with him, to play with him, to dance with him, to eat with him. So these are the different items of ananda and spiritual happiness that we can experience with Krishna. And then he says again that as a spiritual person, a devotee, he returns back to the personality of Godhead and plays and dances with him. And that's the ultimate goal of life. So we just have to take up this good association we take up our own rituals of hearing regularly, chanting the holy names very attentively, and we're very cautious to hear from other sources that can bewilder our faith. Because if someone else, like a scientist or some atheist or demon, has more faith in what he believes in than what you have your faith in, then he can actually sway you. So this is good health. It means it's regulated diet, proper foods, we and do these different things. It's a very scientific process on how to develop this faith, and we could develop spiritual strength. Because Prabhupada said that one who thinks that he can advance without the association of devotees is actually insane, is in a hallucination. Because the scriptures are a fact, and we have to believe them just like the cobbler did. We have to believe like Dhruva Maharaj did, like Prahlad Maharaj did. So this is how we understand Krishna, by this submissive sincerity, faith. And then Krishna will reveal everything to us. And we will attain this ultimate goal of life. So thank you very much. I'll stop here and we can open it up for any discussion or questions.
I already unmuted everybody a minute or two ago.
Thank you.
Did I unmute everybody?
I hope it was...
I don't hear you. Maybe I didn't unmute. Let's see. Yeah, muting is off. Can people...
Oh, I'm sorry. I had muted myself.
Oh, okay.
So yes,
Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you.
I'm going to go to another room so I don't reverb. Raman and I were in the same room. I'm going to go so it doesn't create an echo. Well, you talked a lot. You talked a lot about faith, and well, you mentioned something that I'm having a hard time with here. As a licensed captain with the U.S. Coast Guard, I'm having a hard time understanding. There's a ship that's 8 million miles long. If that's what you said, the biggest ship that we have, which doesn't exist anymore, it was decommissioned. Actually, they beached it in India a number of years ago. Was less than a quarter of a mile.
Wow. No, we're talking about the fish.
So.
The fish is 8 million.
No. You said it was pulling a boat. It pulled a boat that was 8 million miles long.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misstated that. But the boat was, it's pretty small. But the fish, Matsya expanded himself in the beginning. I mentioned how he caught a fish that expanded to 8 million miles long.
Well, I don't believe that. It's hard to believe. Hard to believe that one either.
That's a real fish story.
Yeah, that sounds fishy.
Yeah.
Oh, great class, Prabhu. I was thinking you were talking a lot about faith. It's one of my favorite subjects because faith is what all of our advancement in spiritual life is based on the foundation of faith. The whole Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangha begins with faith. And I was thinking, and you mentioned this, I just want to emphasize it, that it's one of the difficulties in developing faith in the principles that we're learning from the pure devotee is that we start out with our faith strongly invested elsewhere. It's not like we're at a neutral Atmansanyeshva Sattvapi, that we've already put our faith in the illusions of Maya. We have faith that I'm the body. We have faith in all the fallible soldiers. We have faith in this world that we live in that's completely false, and a lot of faith. And we spent lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, inconceivable number of lives living in this world that's a sham. I mean, it's real, but the illusion is that, we're not the body, we're not the false ego. We're strongly invested into thinking that this is our real home.
Right.
So that makes it a little difficult, that we've got to start from having strong, very strong faith elsewhere, and now convert that or develop that faith in a completely different principle, a completely different reality. In Gita, Krishna says, "Parastasmata bhavo anyo," that there's a superior nature, there's a different existence. So when we're accepting that there's a whole different existence, which is our real home, it's a big change from how deeply we're invested in the illusions of this world. and only the words coming from the lips of the pure devotee can dispel that illusion and build that faith. You emphasize, rightly so, that by associating with devotees, that can transfer the faith from illusion to reality.
Yes, exactly, Prabhu. Thank you. That's
nice
true.
class.
We have the Bhagavatam to hear all these wonderful stories. Can you imagine a fish that big, and then the ship must be pretty big? Of course, Krishna could probably.
Oh yeah,
he could probably make.
I'm sure it is. It's proportional.
If he wants, Krishna can, put the whole work on the head of a pin, and still they'll be comfortable. So what does he can make things small, he can make things huge. It's amazing how tiny we really are, though. Yeah, thank you. That was great.
Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, Mother Anu is with us this morning, or evening for her, and she has a question. You know what? I'm going to read her question, and then I'll translate as far as I understand what she's trying to say. Maybe other people understand it differently, or you'll understand it differently. But she says, you named different manus, significant name. What is the use of 1,000 tug in equal to 1 yuga? If 14 manu, once it's over, then the whole universe will be destroyed. Each manu has different benefits. So what she's trying to say is that there's 1,000 divya yugas, 4 yuga cycles, and that equals 1 maha kalpa, or 1 maha yuga, which is the day of Brahma. So after each cycle of the 14 manus, is the whole universe destroyed? And what is the duty of the manu? In other words, how does he benefit by his rule of the universe? I believe that's what she's asking.
Well, their manus are like they actually populate the universe with living entities, and they're in charge of different things. They're great kings and great dynasties, and many of them are devotees of Krishna, and they're here for a particular purpose. They're here to fulfill their material desires at the same time to advance spiritually, just like all other living entities. So they're like administrators, like demigods, great personalities, and they are actually here for a particular purpose, like they're in charge of different things. And it's all described, and if we read all the different Puranas, there's different Puranas and describe all these different things, how there's, every era there's 14 manus, and right now we're in the 7th, and that's Vaishvata Manu, the son of the sun god. So this is the knowledge that's been transposed to this disciplic succession. So we're getting knowledge about Krishna, and through these great personalities, we see their activities. They're our heroes. This Manu is a hero. He's someone we should should follow by his activities, how he had faith in this fish, how he had faith, and he actually did what Krishna wanted him to do. And he was very eager to hear the pastimes of Krishna. And this is how the Matsya Purana is first described, is first mentioned to this particular king. And like that. But, the material world is here because we desire to want to enjoy separately from Krishna. And because we're envious of Krishna, we're attracted to materialistic things. We have faith in these things. So the whole purpose of the manifestation is somehow or another transpose, as Narahari was saying, transpose this materialistic faith into faith, trusting the words of these great souls, our heroes, these great manus, these spiritual masters, these Vedic scriptures, and that way we can get out of here. And this is why Krishna comes too, to display himself, to attract us so that we can fall in love with him. Even this fish is very beautiful, and it's described with wonderful prayers by the king. He's describing him, and he's actually glorifying him as the spiritual master, the original spiritual master. So this is Krishna, our original spiritual master, and he comes through the disciplic succession. So I hope that helps. I'm not sure if I really understand it, but that's just the thoughts that came,
Nice. She's also was asked. She also is asking about when there's, at the end of every one of Brahma's days, at the end of the cycle of the 14 Manus, is the whole universe destroyed? And also, how does Manu transmit his messages to, for instance, mankind?
After each of, let's see, how does that go now? There's a destruction of everything. And then he comes back. Yeah, when Lord Brahma, each day, right, he falls asleep and then everything's destroyed. And then when he wakes up, then everything is created again. And sometimes even when Lord Brahma takes a nap, I think in his pastime with this, there's another incarnation of Matcha. He comes and he protects the Vedas. There's two Matchas, just like there's two Rahas. One time Lord Brahma falls asleep just in the midday, takes a nap, and there's a destruction of everything. And then that's when this demon, demon comes to steal the Vedas. And Matcha comes and appears to take the Vedas back, to protect the Vedas. So I don't have all the technical details of the exact length of times and its descriptions, but it's described throughout the Bhagavatam and in all the different Manus, the Puranas, it's described. But maybe someone here has access to that. They can describe more in detail the actual length of times of Brahma's. There's his lifetime at the end of his lifetime, certainly everything's destroyed. But then during his day, at night, during his night, everything's destroyed also. But I don't think Brahma is destroyed at that time. So maybe someone else can comment on that, bring some light, more light to that.
The Bhuvas was destroyed at the end of Brahma's day, but not planets above that. Mahar, Tapa, Janaloka, and Brahmaloka, they are undisturbed.
Right.
But all the lower planetary systems, the heavenly planets, the middle planets, and the lower planets are destroyed and created during each day and night of Brahma.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. And then when Brahma dies, I guess then everything is destroyed, right, at that time. At the end of his life, which is trillions.
Can I add something? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. It's an interesting thing. Jesus told Nicodemus that it would be easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter in the Christian vernacular heaven, but we're really talking about the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
But this rich man, one of the times he quoted this was Nicodemus, and he wanted to follow Jesus, but Jesus was just letting him know that his great attachment for his wealth, his position, his comforts, his pleasures, and also his addiction to sense enjoyment or simple activity was a tremendous obstacle for him to enter into devotional life. And certainly such an individual will have undeveloped faith. But it reminds me of Prabhupada quotes from somewhere an example where better a king lives forever, and that's because if he dies, he'll collect so much simple reaction for his sensual enjoyment. Better a brahmachari dies immediately so he can receive the results of his sacrifices, while he's Krishna conscious or God conscious. And for the butcher, better he neither lives nor dies, because in both cases he's condemned. Right. So it's more about attachment, and to give up all that is not easy. I mean, there are saintly kings that were able to do that in the Vedas, but generally the worldly minded, the money minded, that's hard for them to give up. Does that make sense?
Yeah. True. That's when was it the sage was blessing different people, the brahmachari, hunter. Probably described that. Yeah. Was it Narada Muni?
Suddenly your volume's down.
Oh, okay. Yes. Was it that Narada Muni that did how he blessed the devotee? The hunter, he said, neither live nor die. And the king.
Yeah, maybe it was. Yeah, do you remember that? It was Narada. He was giving blessings, right?
Yeah.
That's correct. I couldn't remember the whole thing.
Prabhupada quotes it in a purport.
Where is that from? Do you know where that's from?
There's one place it's quoted in the purport, and that's in the 4th canto, 27th chapter, 12th verse, King Puranjana story. And Prabhupada quotes that in the purport. But he just says a saintly person was passing on. Yeah. Did you get it? 427:12. And it said there's other places where Prabhupada describes it in more detail. There's a whole paragraph he talks about that.
The Sanskrit on that is when the benediction's given to the son of the king, the Rajaputra, it's a Charanjiva. Charanjiva means to live a long, long time. And for the Muniputra, Majiva. Ma means to not. Majiva, die immediately. And because you're suffering, you're going through so much austerity now, but yet you'll be so much benedict in the future. And for the butcher, it was Majiva Mamara. Don't live or die, because you're suffering in both cases. But the devotee, Jivava Marova. Either live or die. Jivava Marova.
Die. Cool.
Also, Ramananda, even Bhagavad Gita has it.
Hari, that I really like it.
Bhagavad Gita has it in the 8th chapter, the Yagame Vishaparta Tatvakta Sangame, something like that. Yagame, that when Brahma, sleeps, then the whole universe is withdrawn. Everybody gets. It doesn't mention details, but it's there. Everybody gets a whammy.
Yeah.
What's it about this nap? That was interesting. I never heard of it. Brahma takes a nap. That's kind of an unscheduled. It's not like a day or a night. Like during the day, he takes a nap.
Yeah, there's one.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, in this particular canto, the 8th canto, the last chapter, Prabhupada describes how there's two muches. One came to when Brahma happened to fall asleep at in the midday, and there was a destruction, and this demon demon named Hayagriva, came and stole the Vedas from Lord Brahma's mouth, and then Matsya appeared and took him back and presented him to Lord Brahma when he woke up. So yeah, if he just falls asleep during the day, we're in terrible trouble. Don't take a nap.
We won't know it.
Yeah, we don't know what happened. So, yeah, that's cool. Anyway, yeah, wow, it came quite a bit. I hope it was kind of coherent with so much technical mishaps.
No, it went well. Even with the little glitches, it was fantastic.
Okay,
cool. Great.
Yeah, wasn't a problem.
It's
Just
always
like sugar candy, wherever you taste it, it's sweet.
Right. Thank you for your endeavors there, Ramananda. and Narhari. Jai.
Thank you, Prabhuji, and thank all the Vaishnavas that were with us today. Makes it so powerful.
Yeah, thank you all for your kind attention and engaging me and being absorbed.
See you back here in 2 weeks.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. And all glories to Srimad Bhagavatam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Hi, Hari Hari, whoa.
Hare Krishna.